Hi, it's Tim Patton and Stephanie Richardson coming to you from Hit Lab Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. We thank you for joining us today. And we're talking about one of my very favorite topics, Stephanie, is why is growth so important in business? So why don't you say hello, Stephanie, and we'll jump right into it.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today, Tim.
Great to have you here, and great that you're here on this topic, because I know this topic is one that you and I agree on, at a very high level, and we understand the importance of it. I think that, want to set the stage for it. We are in an unusual time right now with the economy. There's a lot of question marks hanging over what might happen in the next 6 months to 2 years. And everything points to, some decline in the economy. Interest rates are up and all these terrible things. But I want to encourage people that this is not a time for failure. It's not a time for defeat. It is also a time for opportunity. And it's a time that growth can occur, as you've experienced in the past, and I've seen it as well. Even in a decline in the economy, there's opportunities for you to diversify your business and to get into areas that you might not be aware of that will just generate revenue to stabilize your company and balance things out. So I want to start off by asking you, Stephanie, what your philosophy is on growth as it pertains to business, and what you do and what you preach with your clients on a daily basis on how they should approach it.
So I love talking about this topic because I think it is so important. And when we look at growth, we look at not only growth of the individuals in the company, but then we look at the growth of the entire company as well. Because if the individuals in the company are growing, then the organization is going to grow. And if you have that kind of culture that's focused on growth and encourages growth of the employees, then your company is going to grow. So I like to ask my clients what their plan is for personal growth each week, and what are they specifically going to do in their schedule to plan for personal growth, because it's not something that just happens. You have to be intentional about focusing on growth. You can't just go through the day and naturally grow. You have to be intentional about choosing to grow, and it's going to show up in who you become over time, right? And so whether it's listening to a podcast or reading or taking a course, I have some clients who are taking a foreign language or getting their pilot's license, or they are learning guitar. It might not necessarily all be business focused, but it's something that they're doing to focus on growing themselves.
Yeah, I'll admit to that that one as well. I'm one in that group that she could be referring to, because I found that even though my life was full, my schedule was full, my activity was at a high level, there seemed to always be room for more and more growth. And I think a lot of people approach it the wrong way. This year I've been working really hard to get to the point where I can, fly a plane. I've been doing that for most of this year. I've been flying, working on those ratings and getting to a point where I feel comfortable in jumping in a plane and going cross country. And that's, my alternate angle on that is to be able to get to people and solve their problems a little quicker and be able to utilize that as part of the business. But don't get me wrong, it's fun. And it was started as a thing that I always wanted to fulfill. But I will tell you that the catalyst for that was my wife. She recognized that I'm the guy that looked up every single time a plane flew over, and I had a high interest in it. And as one of those people that's very driven, she looked at me and called me right down. She said, "Why have you never done that?" She said, "It's not time. It's not money. You're thought process. It's your state of mind about getting it done. And so she encouraged me, gave me a few kicks in the behind, I'll admit, but that's been coming along nicely and it's been progressing, great. I would love to get it finished faster, but there's so many things going on in life, but I am doing it. I'm working towards that. So I would encourage you as a business owner to not only look at your business, because I want to define a little bit about growth. So let's stop there, kind of back up a bit, and let's talk about the definition and what people perceive as being growth. Because, when somebody says, let's grow our company, the first thing I hear is, we're doing everything we can do to increase revenues and margins. And that's not always what it's about, is it? Tell us a little bit about your approach on that.
Well, you do want to look at revenue, and you do want to look at maybe number of customers and tracking that over time. And maybe you're growing your staff, right? There may definitely be some growth in those areas. But as you mentioned earlier, I think the whole diversification of where that revenue can come from is a really good point, because I think a lot of business owners don't stop and think, okay, where else can we work? What other area can we work in to bring in revenue in a different way from, with our company? So
we talk to clients on a daily basis about that very topic. It is important. We have another episode that's called recession planning. It's kind of one of our tools that we use to work with clients. It is very much the same as growth, in the sense that growing, scaling, building a business, getting a business in position for an acquisition or sale, exit for an owner, succession planning, transitioning, all those things that are important. It is just as important as that, as we kind of look at what the topic or the definition of growth is. A lot of people misunderstand it and they think it's all about money. So I think it is very important to point out that it's about the people. It's about how you grow your employees, how they increase the business through, selling. Doesn't mean they're in sales, but they are a representative of the company, which is indicative of a successful company. I think you find those companies that the people are successful and they love to talk about what they do, right? So when it comes to the individual in a professional sense, what do you focus on for growth with your clients in the professional world and help them get to the next level?
I think it's important for a leader to know what growth the people in their organization want, and then be a part of that. Because one of the things I like to teach to organizations is a vision board. And a lot of people create a vision board, but then they don't do anything with it. And then leaders don't do anything with the vision board of their employees. So one of the companies that I worked with this past year, I was really impressed with the leader of the organization, because we went through this training on vision boards, and then each team member sent him their vision board. And then he printed all of them off and hung them up in his office. And talk about accountability when you meet with the leader, owner of the company, and they know you want to put a deck on the back of your house, So there's a personal goal tied to success in the business, maybe with commission, right? And increased commission leads to them being able to accomplish a personal goal. And then the employee feels that you're invested in them because you know what they want in their personal life, and it ties into the results that they get in the organization. So it affects their family in a positive way, and it affects the organization in a positive way.
Right. I totally agree. The effects are long lasting, and it could kind of just, get into everything that you're associated with, which is a great thing. You hit on something that was important. It brings the thought up. I had the opportunity to do some really high level executive training, and part of their philosophy was a principle of PPF. It was personal, professional, and their, financial goals.
Right.
And so how those relate to each other and are, actually tied together is important to understand, first of all, but it's important to understand the employees and what their goals are. We have actually implemented that in some organizations, and through doing that process and learning that process, and the application of it was really enlightening. We found that, you did learn a lot through that process about the employees and about what their personal goals were. And hey, I want to take my family to Disney. Well, how do we help you get there?
Right.
So that turns into, it takes that personal goal, and how do we elevate you professionally, enable you to, affect your financial goals,
right,
and all of those kind of work in harmony together. So I think that's a great point that you make. It's important to kind of understand that concept and understand how the application of it and what you can get out of it with your employees. So if you're willing to sit down with them, and one of the things I love to do is a couple of elements, a small SWOT analysis on a personal level, find out what they really feel like, the strengths are on their personal level, strengths with the organization are, likewise with the opportunities and the other things involved in the SWOT analysis. Each of those tie into the PPF, and then therefore kind of lay out a roadmap for success with the employee. And if you can walk with them through that success, I think their chances for being the greatest employee you've ever had are very high.
I think there's loyalty that's built because it shows as a leader you're invested in them as an individual. They're not a number, but you actually care about them and their personal life, and that you're spending the time really diving into what are their goals and what do they want to accomplish, not only professionally, but also personally.
Yeah. So, one of the questions that we get posed a lot is, how do I grow my company? That's a broad question. Ooh. So, it's a tough one because you have to know more than just, hey, my name's Stephanie, I want to grow my company and go off of that. So, the number one, the buy-in of really truly understanding what it takes to grow the business is important. And getting all those things in place, we work really hard with our clients to do that. We come into the organization, sit down with them, do just what we talked about forecasting those goals. Where we feel like we differ is the fact that the execution piece is many times missing. Mm. So how many times have you worked with clients where they had to go, and I'm talking about not your personal clients now, but work with clients that have engaged in some type of program or platform, got great input, and then didn't do anything with it? What's your experience with that?
Oh, I think that happens all the time. I think we all do that ourselves. We go to a conference or a workshop, and then we don't actually implement anything that we've learned. And I was just talking with a client about that earlier this morning, actually, because he was saying that he had a personal growth goal to read a specific number of books. And it was a really high number of books that he wants to read in the next year. And I said to him, so what are you going to do with those 30 books that you want to read? What action steps do you want to accomplish by reading 30 books? That's a lot to implement. Wouldn't it be more effective to read 3 books or 5 books and actually follow through with some action steps and get some results versus just trying to read a certain number of books, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. And that kind of ties into another episode. We were talking about what I affectionately call the business ADHD syndrome, where people get distracted. I mean, we're all busy, and we find ourselves getting derailed. I'm admittedly, I'll admit that I'm probably ADHD because of the symptoms are certainly there, from time to time. So I love to do a lot of things at once. Am I great at all of those at the same time? Probably not. What seems most effective for me is building that plan, and dumbing it down in the simplest form is just the first thing I do every morning is I spend my coffee time writing out what I've got to get accomplished that day. And they don't necessarily go in order of priority, but I know that I can list those things out, and it makes me feel accomplished at the end of the day that I had some success in getting those things done. You have to be careful not to overload, of course, too many things. And many times those push to the next day and they fall on the next day's list. But the only issue that I have with it is getting to the point where I feel like I'm in the mood to pick and choose what I want to do, So that's the downfall of the list, is you can kind of go down and say, I want to do this, I don't want to do this. So you could be somewhat selective, but having a plan is better than no plan at all. I like to say that, and I like to feel like having that direction and understanding, and sometimes just speaking the words of what you're trying to accomplish is so important, because after it comes out of your mouth, isn't it quite different?
Well, for example, there are some chiropractors that I work with, and we knew we specifically wanted to increase the number of patients that they were seeing a month. And so that was one area that they wanted to grow in. And so you have to decide, what areas do you want to grow in your business, right? Maybe that's not important to someone else, but to them, that was an important goal. So that's what we zoned in on. And we went from them seeing 100 patients a month to seeing about 450 a month now. And so, of course, that means increased revenue, which leads to all kinds of wonderful things that they can spend marketing money on and hire employees, and right? So, but you have to define, what do you want that growth to look like? What numbers do you want to target, right? But then also, I think it's important for owners, especially, I call it CEO time. I really encourage them each week, at the end of the week, to have some just quiet assessment time and really think back on the week and go, okay, what went well this week? Maybe do some journaling or think through what went well this week. What didn't go so well? What do I need to do differently? What are some action steps I need to take to move the needle to grow my business next week or next month or whatever it might be? But giving yourself the gift of time to really stop and assess, that just gives you so much insight and awareness. And that's what coaching does, is it brings that increased insight and awareness, because most people don't stop and take the time to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that, it's important to say that getting a coach is important. I mean, I know you're biased. You are one, and
a little bit biased.
You're great at what you do, and I've seen the results with some of the folks that I've interacted with, and they speak highly of the ability to kind of give them some direction. And again, those that feel like they have got it all right. I was that guy at one time in my career, and I felt like my way was the right way, and found out later on that it wasn't the right way, and that there were people that were way further down the line and had a wealth of knowledge that I could just simply ask or draw on. And in your case, the professional coaching can take someone to completely another level. So speaking of time, we're out of time for today. So we want to thank you guys for joining us today for this episode, although it be fairly short, coming from Hit Lab Studios here in Nashville, Tennessee. I want to thank Stephanie Richardson, and please reach out and learn how you can grow by being helped through either professional coaching or business professional consulting like our organization does. Taking your business and your professional life and your personal life to the next level is what it's all about. We want to continue to grow all aspects of that. And believe me, from experience, you can find time to do it. We encourage you to do that today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.